Hello and welcome to haQ. My name is Jakob, I'm your host, and you're watching a combination of a haQ episode and a vlog. I recently put up a video called 9 times Phasemaker, in where I was playing this track made inside Cubase's with 9 times Phasemaker loaded as audio units, together with a vocal track being heavily processed by Cubase's effects only. Some of you viewers requested that I make a vlog of it. There's so much to say about this project and what I've done here. I decided on making the first part a haQ episode and the latter part in this video a vlog in where I tell you the disadvantages with making a project like this. So stick with me and let's start with a preview of the track. That's quite enough for a reminder, and if you want to hear more, then you could always click this card and go to the original video and look at that one first and then come back to this one. Let's start with the bass drum, and I've got a studio equalizer here. I'll open it up so you can see the settings, and I will A/B this for you. Now the changes might not be that prominent. What I've done is I've intentionally cut off a lot of the bass material because I've got a sub bass in here and I want the sub bass to be dominant in the lower registry of the frequency spectrum. I've also dipped a bit around 376 there, and it's basically because when I made the snare drum I realized that the bass drum was fighting a bit around that area. I also pulled up a bit around 5K because there is some dirt in the bass drum that I just wanted to get in there. Oh, and maybe I should add that all of the instruments that you hear are being made by Phasemaker. Now let's jump down to the snare drum. And here I'm using a channel strip, the studio equalizer, and a compressor. And now I'm going to turn off the channel strip, the studio equalizer, and the compressor and listen to it again. Alright, so let's turn these on and let's have a look at the channel strip first. Now inside the channel strip, most of the stuff it's bypassed except from the compressor. I like the compressor in this new channel strip that Steinberg introduced into Cubase's 2. It kind of reminds me of a DBX compressor I used to own, 266 or something like that. Let's have a look at the studio equalizer. And here you can see I've done quite a lot with it. Now I've intentionally cut off all of the bass material and the mid bass materials up to around 200 Hertz, and that's usually where you find the body of a snare drum, and that's why I've peaked it a bit there. I've also peaked some of the smacky noises around 2000 and 3000 Hertz, and I've dipped a bit around the high registries because I don't want my sound to be that sharp. Then we have the compressor. And as you can see, it's just doing some slight work because I don't want a squashed sound on my snare drum, just keeping it in check so it doesn't go out of control. Let's jump down to the hi-hat. As you can hear, when I turn off the studio equalizer, we get a lot of lower registry and mid registry frequencies back. Let's jump down to the bass. Just a simple sub-bassy sound here, and the only thing I've done, as you can see, I'm using no filters or equalizers or anything like that. I like the sound of it. It pops out in the mix. It's like right in your face. Just some slight compression to keep the bass in check. Now let's have a look at the chord channel. And here I'm using no effects. Now I made all of the presets myself, but the chord presets were made using an original preset from the factory presets inside here. I'm guessing that Bram made the preset, so thank you for the inspiration for this one. it sounds marvelous. There's not much to say here, except from you can clearly hear a reverb. And if we look at the send effects, I'm not using any reverbs here. So all the effects, the reverb, the delays are coming from the synth itself. Now I am using some send effects at some channels, but I never use them on the bass channels. However, on the hi-hat, the snare, and some of the sounds further down here, I've got a bit of reverb on it, and it's actually Cubase's own reverb. Let's go into the next quarter. I loaded up a factory preset from Phasemaker, and then I tweaked that one to my liking. Now, since I'm doing a dub track, I had to have a siren in here. And the power you get from a sound like this is just immense. It shoots through everything, so I squashed it with a compressor to get an even more squashy, siren-y sound. Let's go down to the lead sound. And here I've got a studio equalizer loaded, and I've cut away everything from 1000 Hz and down. Now I made the lead intentionally sharp, and I also made it in a way so that it would fit together with a bell sound. And it's this one right down here. It's also got a studio equalizer, and I've only cut away from about 300 Hz, 400 Hz and down. And because I don't want the bell to fight with snare drums and some of the chords and stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, here I'm using send effects and quite a bit of reverb from Cubase's, just to get some space around my sound. And those are the 9 instances of Phasemaker and what they sound like. Now, if we go down to the vocal channel, I've also got a big spacious reverb here, but it's an entirely different reverb from the other send reverbs that I'm using for the other sounds for the synthesizer. I always make a different reverb for use with vocals and effects. Praise Jah. As you can hear, I've got a bit of delay coming there, and it's coming from the tape delay that you can get as an in-app purchase for the retro effects inside Cubase's. I've got both packs and they're really worth the money. So I'm doing a bit of modulation on the feedback knob here, and that's how you get that dubby sound. Praise Jah. Now let's have a look at the insert effects for this track. As you can see, I'm using a channel strip, and here I'm using all of the items inside the channel strip. I'm cutting off some low frequencies. I'm also using a gate to do away with some breathing sounds and some other sounds that were going on, like construction work down below. The compressor to keep the volume in check, and a saturator just to get some distortion into my vocals. Going down to the studio channel, I've cut away all of the lower registries like mids and bass, and I've upped a bit around the sharper registries just to make the vocals cut through the mix. As you know, I've got a tape delay in here, and I've just used the default settings. I didn't really change anything except from the time dial, and then I'm just modulating the feedback. And then further down we have the compressor. I'm using this compressor to keep the volume in check after my vocals has been processed through all of these effects, especially because of the tape delay. When you turn up the feedback knob, it can get quite loud, and that's when you want the compressor to keep everything in check. And that's basically how this project was built up. 9 times Phasemaker and haQ vocals. Now stick with me because now we come to the vlog part. If you're still watching, then I commend you, because this video is already long and it's only gonna get longer. But don't worry, it's not gonna get that long, and if you keep watching to the end, then there will be some outtakes. Yay! Now, I did have a lot of issues with loading my Cubasis projects, and this happens with all of the projects in where I'm using lots of audio units. So it's not exclusive to Phasemaker. No. Now, I don't know how it is for other DAWs, but I'm thinking that it might be the same, especially for those of us that uses older iPad models. Like me, I'm using an iPad mini 2, so it's limited on RAM and CPU. That's memory and processing power. So when I do open a project, after it's been closed, of course, then some of the plugins, the audio unit plugins, doesn't load properly. And that's a problem if you don't have access to a proper preset system, because when you reload a plug, then it forgets the last thing you did in it. All the settings are lost. So if you haven't been able to save it as a preset, then you're back at 0 again. That's a problem. And I had that problem a lot. I do so much want the preset system to be better in the future for audio units. We need preset systems. Now, thankfully, Brambos put a preset system into Phasemaker. I don't understand why some apps don't display that inside Cubasis, because in other instances where you're using them in ModStep and in ORM, you can see preset systems. So that is really the biggest issue I had. Jolly! Whoa, I don't know what that was. Thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. I also have a Patreon account, so if you want to support me in that way, then you can see the address right here, and you can also find it down in the description, together with app links for the apps that I've been talking about. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it. Now comes the outtakes. If you're still here, If you're still here, it looks weird when I'm doing that finger thing. If you're still watching, then okay, I'm moving my hand in front of the microphone and I'm moving my face away so you won't hear me. Now I'm always poking myself in the eye. It's just in the way. If you're still... I feel too static. I have to do something. If you're still watching, if you're still watching, if you're still watching, if you're still watching this... If you're still watching, then I commend you, because, oh, I look so joyous. If you're still watching, then it's almost as if I'm preparing myself for the big leap. Like, if you're still watching, then if you're still watching, then I commend you, because this video is already... I just want to get this done. If you're still watching, then I commend you, because this video is already getting very... It's psyching me out. I'm getting psyched out by my own reflection in the camera. I need to get this done so much. I need to get this done.